Welcome back to NB Media and Content. Today I'll be featuring the 2000 Nissan R34 GTR V-Spec. This is the rarest of the model series called the M1, which is a motorsport edition. And this is very similar to a Porsche RS variant or Mercedes AMG Black Series. So that means this GTR was sold in very low numbers and it was produced to homologate the model series to the Japanese domestic market's N1 racing series. N1s were only sold to certain race teams or special customers. And these have now become very valuable, with examples selling close to $1 million. And in this review, I'm going to explain to you why this is special by giving you a brief overview of the M1 model series and tell you everything you need to know about it, as well as talk about the design changes, go through the interior, talk about the powertrain upgrades, and lastly, I'm going to drive it. If you get value out of my videos, please give it a like, share and subscribe. Now let's talk about the M1 series GTR. So the M1 is basically a lightweight, track-focused homologation version of the GTR. Well, what about the Nismo series, you may ask? Aren't they special? Well, the car comes from Nissan, but it is then sent off to Nismo's tuning division. So Nismo takes a Nissan model to modify it as a Nismo model. So it's not exactly made by Nissan, whereas the M1s come from Nissan and they were produced for Group A racing. So to meet the rules and regulations, they had to come from Nissan's production line, and they were produced to homologate the GTR for the Japanese domestic market's N1 racing series. And the M1s have been around since the R32, so as you can see on the screen, you'll see the number of builds, the type of variants, key specifications I've listed out, and that means these N1 series are extremely rare. Let's now talk about the design of the M1 GTR. So up front, it features xenon headlights, as well as additional cooling for those ceramic turbochargers, as well as improved aerodynamics. And if we have a look at the car side on, it features larger side skirts, as well as gloss black mirror caps, which is a key takeaway that this is an N1 specification. And it's also riding on 18-inch Nismo gloss black 5-spoke alloy wheels wrapped in Bridgestone rubber, and for stopping performance, Brembo brakes. Now coming across the rear design of the M1, as you can see, it features no rear windscreen wiper, which is also another key takeaway that this is an N1 specification. And you've also got an adjustable rear spoiler, as well as a rear diffuser, which is part of the track package, and the traditional 4 rear taillights at the back. And lastly, in terms of colours, there were no choices available. It was only offered in this one colour, QM1, titled as white. Let me know in the comments what you think of the overall design, and also let me know if I've missed anything in terms of key specifications. But for now, I'm going to move on to the interior. Okay, moving on to the interior inside the M1 GTR. So this was meant to be a stripped down hardcore version of the regular V-Spec. So that means some of them didn't receive a multifunction display, air conditioning, a radio. However, when this car was new at the time, you can actually option some of the features back into the car. For example, this one has single zone automatic climate control and the multifunction display, which is in Japanese, so I can't run you in depth with all of its features, but it shows you various information like your boost, oil temperature, as well as a television, which is only in Japanese. I don't actually think it works. So what about the rest of the cabin? Well, it's pretty much like a standard R34 GTR. So there's a lot of dark grey plastics. They are soft to the touch, but they are plastic after all. Nothing too special. It's pretty much like a standard car from this period. And you do have this plastic trim in the centre that looks like aluminium, but it is plastic. You get a free spoke leather wrap steering wheel with the red stitching and the GTR badge in the centre, and an analog gauge cluster going to 320 with a Nismo and GTR badge. The seats are comfortable. They are wrapped in this nice material and they do hug you in really nicely. In terms of the driving position, the seats are manually controlled with these levers around the base of the seat. The steering offers tilt adjustment, and everything is right at your fingertips, so it's easy to shift gear. You have the handbrake just right here, and yeah, really nice place to be. And in terms of practicality, there's plenty of storage around the cabin, even on the side as well, and a decent sized glove box. And you do have 2 rear seats behind you with 2 seat belts, and for occasional use they are fine for the purpose. Let's move on to the boot. So using the lever inside the cabin, you just hold it down and then that will release the boot. So when I open it, as you can see on the top part of the boot lid, there is no carpet, so that was removed for weight reduction. And looking inside the boot, it's pretty much like a standard R34. You do also have a space saver spare tyre and a toolkit. Okay, let's talk about the powertrain. So under the bonnet features the N1 engine block. It's a revised version of the RB26, which has been heavily revised for racing specification. It's an inline 6-cylinder 24-valve twin turbocharged engine, mated to a 6-speed manual. And in terms of outputs, 206 kilowatts and 392 newton meters of torque. and it has a 0 to 100 time in 4.4 seconds. So let's now take it for a drive and see how it feels on the road. Okay, behind the wheel of the GTR, starting with a noise test. Sounds really good. Okay, behind the wheel of the M1 GTR. Acceleration. Well, it's definitely raw, and it definitely has a lot of performance. And in terms of the power delivery, you don't really feel a lag in the turbos, so I think that is one key difference with the ceramic turbochargers. In terms of handling, well, it's like every other JDM, go-kart steering. It's really good, it's really fun to drive. And of course with the firmer suspension, it pretty much stays flat around the corners. And in terms of stability, these seats really hold you in nice and snug, but they've also got really good comfort too, so you don't really feel the bumps from the firm suspension. You have a fantastic gearbox, and brakes are good too. In terms of the way this car feels compared with a regular R34, I can't really tell the differences. Obviously it has an increased power output and it is a little bit lighter, but you can't really tell the difference at lower speeds. They've also tweaked the all-wheel drive in this to give it better traction, and you can definitely feel that through the corners. You have a lot of confidence behind the wheel. I think if you took this on a racetrack, you'll probably spot the key changes, but you do have more boost with the ceramic turbochargers. It is a more raw car, but some of the key things I'm feeling right now, obviously as you can see with the camera footage, the suspension is quite firm. It does ride on stiffer shock absorbers. And other things I've noticed, it does feel raw inside the cabin. You do hear a lot of the engine noise as well as the exhaust sound. The only thing I have noticed is its turning circle, and I think that's to do with the all-wheel drive setup. I do hear squealing from the brakes, but I think that's because they are high performance brakes with a ceramic padding. You do have to go very slow over bumps, but the clutch is easy. It's no harder to drive than a normal Toyota Corolla with a manual gearbox. But you'll be having a lot of fun behind the wheel. So obviously this will be ideal if you do a lot of track driving. But again, of course, this is a collector's item, so tracking it won't really help with the value of this car, and keeping it original also helps maintain that price tag as well. So that's my short drive of the M1 GTR. Let's now wrap up the video with a verdict. What's my final verdict on the M1 GTR? So I know already the R34 is an incredible car, very fun to drive. But in terms of how this feels in comparison with a regular R34, obviously you get the increased performance. The car is obviously exclusive, being a low production example. Ultimately, this is a collector's GTR, and the value of them is of course the originality, and it has a really good story to it, like many homologation cars. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share and subscribe if you've gained some value out of the information I've provided, and I will see you in the next film.